Hello and welcome to our Adobe Express stream today. My name's Liz Mosley and I am going to be walking you through making a carousel post today for Instagram. So I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat and say hello to everyone who's there already. We've got Michelle, we've got Sean, Penny. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. Let me know where you are watching from. If you are watching on YouTube, feel free to hop over to Behance and come and join us in the chat and let us know how you're getting on. Okay, so we're going to hop straight into Adobe Express. And as I mentioned, today we are going to be looking at how to make a carousel post for Instagram. If you've got any questions, then feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. So yeah, let's get going. So, right, what we're going to do to start off with is we are going to create ourselves. We're going to head to the big plus in the top left-hand corner and we're going to create ourselves a custom size graphic. Now, you need a little bit of basic maths for this one. So if you think that a post on Instagram is square, we're going to do it square just because that's easier to work out the sums. But if you wanted to do, you can do sort of like portrait posts, you would just need to adjust what your height is. And I think it's 4 by 5. But what we're going to do is we're just going to make the width 5,000 pixels. So that is assuming that we've got 5 images that are 1,000 by 1,000. So that is going to make up our carousel post. So we're just going to make that canvas. And this is what we're starting with. I didn't mean to open that. Okay, so I've got my canvas here. Let me just check in. Oh, we've got people from Texas, Pennsylvania, Germany. Oh, hi, everyone. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to layout because I've got a handy little trick. Now you'll see that there's lots of layout options here, but I've got a handy little trick for dividing up my canvas. So I want to have 5 segments of this canvas, which are going to become my square images for my carousel post. So I found this one that has got 5 squares. So I'm just going to click on that. And already it has automatically divided up the canvas for me. Now you might decide that you want to have them all the same color or you want to have an image flowing through, but this will just help you know sort of where your boundaries are for each of the canvas. Now I'm just going to have a little play around with the colors. I like this sort of ombre thing going on, so I'm going to keep that, but I don't want a white one as my heading. So I think I'm just going to see if I can rejig slightly the colors so that we've got a darker one here at the end. So just updating the colors. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how that is looking. Hey, Tony. Tony's joining us in the chat today. Tony joined me on my first 2 live streams as my host, which was lovely. Okay, so I'm going to head over into Shape. So what I'm going to make today is a carousel post. These often work really well if you're sharing tips or educational content. And what's great about them is that they encourage people to interact with your content. So people have to scroll to get all the information. It means that they are spending more time looking at your post. So I'm going to share, as I mentioned, 4 tips to get more podcast listeners. I've got a podcast. I love it. So I'm always thinking of ways that I can promote it. But first, I'm going to put in some graphic elements. And what I want to do is make my design flow across all of the squares so that there's like this seamlessness about the design. So I'm going to head into shapes and I am going to search for arrows. So I want to have some arrows in the design that is sort of like leading people across, so that they know to scroll onto the next, the next slide, I guess you could call it. The other thing that you can do as well is that if, say, you post this carousel on your Instagram and it does well, then you could easily repurpose it for other platforms. So you could turn it into a carousel post on LinkedIn, or it could potentially be a Twitter thread where in each tweet you have a different one of the images. So yeah, I'm all about repurposing content to save myself time. Let me know in the chat if you've done carousel posts before, while I just look for some hand-drawn arrows. Emma's here too. Hi, Emma. Right. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through, pick out some fun arrows. Oh, that one didn't. Oh, there it is. I've got 2 of them now. Don't need 2. So I'm just going to make sure that they go over each square, because like I mentioned, I want them to sort of create a seamless design. I need a couple more. I want one on each of the sort of joins. I quite like these ones. And I'm just going to make them different colors. I've got a bit of a color palette going now, which is great, which Adobe Express automatically made for me, which I'm very grateful for. Sometimes coming up with color palettes can be a tricky part of designing. So I just need one more arrow. Let me know if you spot one that you like the look of. I'll go, I feel like I want a curly one. Let me just see. Oh, here we go. Here are the curly ones. Let's get this one. Nice. So I'm going to put that one over here. Just zoom in a bit so you can see my screen better. Okay, so the arrows are looking good. I want to get in some sort of, maybe like some illustrative bits as well. So I'm going to have a look in design assets, and I'm going to look for maybe like dashes. Maybe some dashes would look cool. This is the sort of thing that I love. So these sort of, all of my designs end up having, some sort of hand-drawn elements in them. And I really like these ones. There's just so much amazing stuff that you can find on Adobe Express. So, no problem, Penny. Penny says, thank you for explaining what the carousel post can be useful for. There's so many different things that you can do with them, but I find that they definitely work well for educational posts. So what I'm going to do is I want to change the color of this design asset that I just brought in. So I'm heading over to filters. I've got it on duotone, and then you can just go in here, and I've got my current color palette. So I can just go in here and pick one of my colors. So I'm just going to add a few different bits, maybe some dots. I'm just going to sprinkle them through the design. Again, I'm mainly going to concentrate on these sort of joins, because I want it to be really like clear that the design flows from one slide to the other, because I think that's a nice feature. So I just need 2 more, I think. So let's go with these. I'll put that up here. Just move this down. Then I'm going to change the color again. So head into filter, duotone, and then you can just change the colors there. Right, so I just need one more design asset. Hi, Simi, nice to see you. Right, let's see, we just need one more. Let's just go with one of these sort of other kind of like dashed ones, or maybe this is a nice one. So the other thing that you can bear in mind is that if you are creating this post for your Instagram, you might have like branding that you want to apply. So obviously on Express, you've got your brands. that you can set up, which we covered in a previous live stream. So you can just click the brand button. I'll show you where that is in a minute. And it will brand all of this to your colors. So if you go to, I think it's in design, yeah, apply brand. Right, I'm just gonna have a quick drink and then we're gonna start adding text. Right, so I'm gonna go into text and they've got lots of sort of pre-made kind of like designs in here. So let's have a look at headlines. So the first square is going to be my title. I know that I've got a number in there, so I'm going to go for this one. I'm going to have numbers all the way through because I want to, yeah, have my points numbered. At the moment, this is grouped together. So I'll just sort of get it where I want it. And then I'll probably ungroup it. You'll see there's just a button there so that I can easily change the colors. Because again, I want to have my sort of brand colors. And then up here, I'm just going to edit the text. And I need to change the number actually, because I've got 4 points, not 5. Right, 4 ways to get more podcast listeners. Let me know in the chat if you are a fan of podcasts. What's your favorite podcast? I'm always looking for recommendations. There's so many amazing creative podcasts out there that you can listen to. Right, okay, so that's going to be my title slide here over on the left. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this back together again, and I'm going to copy it onto each of the slides, and then we're going to put in our tips. Tony says, what is my podcast called? It's called Building Your Brand, and it's all about branding and marketing. It's not a spoiler for the carousel. Yeah, it's really fun. Every episode I interview, or most episodes, I interview a different guest about something to do with branding and marketing. And yeah, it's really fun. I love it. Tim is listening to tech-related podcasts. Yeah, let us know your recommendations. I want to hear what they are. So I'm just going to go in and I just put them on all the different pages. I'm just going to go in and number my points. So there we go. I need to change the color of that one so it can actually be seen. Okay, and now I'm going to just move these around because I don't want the layout to be exactly the same on each one, but I do want to keep the fonts consistent. So now I'm going to put in my tips. Oh, I can never spell on these things. I think it's when I know that I'm being watched. Right, so promote your podcast on social media. It's going to be tip number 1. I'm going to change the colors. And then let me just fill in tip number 2. Oh, we'll put number 2 there. Move this down here. And I've got a nice broad color palette so I can get all the different colors in. I think there's some text here somewhere that is in, oh, there we go. I knew I'd lost it somewhere. Right, tip number 3 is going to be invite guests on. It's always good to get other people to shout about you and your work and what you're doing. And then we've got tip number 4 is going to be to create a podcast trailer. Stuart says he really enjoys Creative Boom and the Honest Designers Show. Yes, I love both of those. They're really good. Creative Boom, recently had Kieran on it, I think, or a little while ago, who is another Adobe host. And the Honest Designers Show had Jessica Hish on, who is one of my all-time favorite designers. Both brilliant podcasts. Okay, so here is my carousel post. I'm happy with how the design's looking. So as I mentioned, I've got elements that flow across the different squares. So eventually these are going to be chopped down these lines, and then you would upload them all to Instagram, and then you'd be able to scroll through them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click download, and I'm going to download this as a JPEG. What I should have done is named my project first. Tony will tell me off for not saving it. Right, let's download it now. And then I'm just going to put that on my desktop. Ooh. And now what I'm going to do is head over to Illustrator to chop this up. So we're going to only be in Illustrator very, very quickly, just to get it divided up perfectly into the squares. So what I'm going to do, a key thing is you need to remember the dimensions that you used. So I'm going to go new file. I've already put it in there handily. So I'm going to make sure that my width and my height is 1000 by 1000 pixels. We're not going to do the 5000 because we want each bit of the design to be on separate artboards. So I've got 5 artboards in here. I'm just going to make sure that it's RGB because this is going online. It doesn't need to be 300. It can be 72. Maybe I'll do 150 just in case I want to use it elsewhere. And then what I'm going to do is go into more settings, and I'm going to make sure that I have clicked that the artboards are arranged in a row, because I want them to be in a long row right next to each other. And normally, the default will be for there to be some spacing here, but I want it to be 0 because I want them to be right next to each other. So I'm going to hit create document. And then what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to go file, place, and I'm just going to place the JPEG that I saved here. It looks a bit faded out, but it won't be faded out when it's saved. So you'll see now that because there's no gaps in between my artboards, the design lines up perfectly and goes across all the different artboards. So all I need to do now is go File, Export. I'm going to go Export As. I'm going to save them as JPEGs. And then I'm going to save it as Carousel Post. And then what I'm going to do is click Use Artboards and make sure that all is selected. So that is basically going to save each artboard separately. And so then I'm just going to click Export. Again, make sure it's RGB. I'll just leave it the size that it is because it's just for online. And now I should be able to see on my desktop, let me just move this out of the way, all of the individual slides. So I've got 4 ways to get more podcast listeners, and then each of my tips as separate images, which is nice and handy. So what I'm going to do now is just head back into Adobe Express, and I am going to go back to the homepage and I'm going to click on schedule. So last 2 weeks ago in our live stream, we looked at the scheduler, which makes things super easy for posting to social media. So I'm just going to click add new. And what I can do now is just add all of those files. And thankfully, due to a recent update from Facebook and Instagram, you can post more than one image. So it automatically is going to post your carousel post for you. So I just click on Instagram because that's where I want it. I write my caption. What was it? 4 ways to get more podcast listeners. I select a publish date, a time, and then I can either keep it as a draft post or I can schedule it. And then it's going to appear in my calendar on the date and it's all ready to go. It's going to upload as a carousel post. And yeah, it's as easy as that. So there's a couple of questions. Michelle says the color scheme is fun. Yay, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, there's also something else that I'll quickly show you. Adobe, if you go into colors, you can get lots of ideas for different colors, which is really, really handy. So if you weren't feeling confident about what color palette you wanted to use, if you don't have a particular brand color palette, you can go in here and get loads of inspiration. Yeah, and it's sort of like categorize them all. So if you know the look and feel that you want to go for, then you can click on there. So we've got a couple of other questions. Sean says, if you download it as a PDF and open in Illustrator, you'll have the layers. Will the background already be in squares? No, it's not going to be in squares. Oh, you've already tested it. So yeah, Sean's already checked it out for us. So the layers are split up, so you can edit in Illustrator, but it's not split into squares. So you'd still need to do that little trick with the artboards just to divide it up. Simi says, can we split it in Photoshop? Yeah, you can split it in Photoshop. Absolutely no problem. Whatever you feel comfortable using, basically, to split it up. I quite like the artboard trick in Illustrator. I find it sort of the quickest thing to do, but if you're more comfortable in Photoshop or if that's what you've got access to, that's absolutely fine as well. Great. I think that is all of the questions. So another thing that you might decide to do is that you might decide you want an image in the background that runs across the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is just delete these squares and I'm just going to go to photos and I am going to find I'm going to go to backgrounds because I don't want it to be too busy. And I'm going to see if I can find like a nice gradient that could go in the background. Let's see. Oh, wow, that is bright. Let's see how something like this might move. So what I'm going to do is click pin it to background because I want it to go across the whole thing. So immediately you see how that could give a totally different look and feel. And what I love about this is that, again, the design, like it just slides through the whole design. If you were going to go for this option, then obviously the colors that I've chosen for all these elements don't quite work with this gradient. But I think, you know, even just having it white would look amazing. All the text and all the design elements in white would look really cool. Tim says, I see we found the Maddie Vision gradients. Yeah, I love a good, Maddie loves a gradient. I love a gradient. This is looking very, very cool. So yeah, there's, you know, different options about what you can do with your design. And I just think this sort of carousel post really stands out on social media. And as I mentioned before, it just keeps people scrolling and keeps people engaging with your content. I just want to try a few more backgrounds. There's some. Okay. So yeah, amazing. That is looking great. What we've covered everything that you need. Devlin is going to have a play around with it, and we're going to wrap up now. Thank you so much for joining me. After this, there is a masterclass. It is with Paul, and it's all about making perfect tiling patterns in Illustrator and Photoshop. So we've been in Illustrator. You can carry on learning what you can do in there. So enjoy that stream straight after this. And thank you so much for joining me. It's been so nice chatting to you in the chat. Thanks for your podcast recommendations. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time looking at more fun things that you can do in Adobe Express.